Hey, welcome Susquehanna community to the SCHS Works podcast. This is episode 13, and we are bringing our guests back down to a controllable size today. The last couple episodes, we have filled this room, and we decided we need to kind of narrow the scope down so we can have a little bit more of a personal conversation. But I have Elizabeth Delaney here with me today. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I know it was a little bit of a hectic time trying to figure out when our schedules would mesh, when you'd be in the building. I'd cancel on you once, but at the end of the day, we got you here, and I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm excited. So, hey, you are obviously a former student of one of ours. And let's just throw it out for the audience. You were an absolutely awesome student.
Thank you.
Like, if we could have said, hey, we want a class full of individuals, who would it be? It probably would have been like, we want 66 Elizabeth Delaneys, because, like, behavior wasn't an issue that we knew of. I mean, maybe you're sneaky and just got away with some things. Most teenagers are. But then obviously your academics and just the type of person you are, it's something that is good to see. So, hey, way back when you were here at Susquehanna Community High School as a student, do you remember the Mocha Moose?
I do, yeah.
All right, so Mocha Moose has not occurred for a long time, but it's occurring this year. I'm super excited. Isn't it?
Super exciting.
So we believe, and I want to be very transparent that I don't know if this is true, but I believe the last time that Mocha Moose took place was in 2019.
That's crazy.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. So there's a lot of people that have no idea what the Mocha Moose is. What do you remember of the Mocha Moose from back in high school? Because I'm putting you on the spot here.
I remember that there were some students that sang, there were some students that played the piano, they did jokes. I remember the commentators were like the funniest part of it because they would always make jokes and stuff like that, and it was a good time.
Yeah, and so that's, if you're looking for something to do on Friday night at 5:30, Mocha Moose is the place to be. We have exactly what you said. We have individuals that are going to sing, that are going to play the piano, some card tricks, maybe some magic tricks. I know there's going to be some jokes there. I had thought about taking part in the dad joke portion, but then I decided I better not because we wanted people to actually show up. So speaking about things going on, like last night, I don't know if you drove through our campus last night. Wednesday night is what I'm referring to, but it was absolutely packed. There was a baseball game, softball game going on. There was track. You literally couldn't find a place to park, and I loved it. It was super cool to see. So shout out to anyone that was here at our campus last night. And you know what? We need to give a shout out to Mrs. Lloyd. Mrs. Lloyd, our athletic director, because yesterday the opposing school said, hey, did you look at the radar? It looks like it's going to rain. We don't want to send a bus over there to get the game canceled and turn around and come back and have to pay for busing twice. So Mrs. Lloyd was feeling the pressure from that school district, but she said, no, we've got to try to play this game. And she made the right call because the games got in. So, hey, shout out to Mrs. Lloyd, kind of fighting off that pressure from another district, which I understand, but, fighting for our kids, and absolutely love to see it. So, all right, let's get into your role, Elizabeth. So, you work for Trehab.
I do.
And
yes.
You have a very long title.
I do, yes.
What is your title?
So I'm a prevention specialist, I'm a SAP liaison, and I'm an assistant counselor for Trehab, drug and alcohol.
Okay, so can you kind of break that down and explain a little bit in a nutshell what that all means?
So the prevention specialist aspect is I go into schools and I teach children different skills to say no to drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Essentially, my job title for that. SAP liaison is I sit on a board of each of the school. Each school has like a board where they have a program called a student assistance program. And I sit as the drug and alcohol liaison. So if per se a kid was caught vaping or they were caught with drugs and alcohol, I could do intervention courses with them.
Yeah, and we actually have students that go through those courses.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that you explained what SAP is really important because the general public probably doesn't know.
No.
But every single school in the state of Pennsylvania has to have a SAP team, and Susquehanna Community is no different.
Yes.
So it's really a holistic approach of nurse, Trehab liaison, guidance counselors, teachers, where you sit down and say, hey, is there a student that may be struggling or showing signs that they're struggling? And you try to look at everything. You look at grades, you look at health records, you look at attendance, and you just try to figure out what's really going on and how can you get to the core root of those problems and help out that student. And sometimes, we sit down and look and we think there's a problem and there isn't, which is great. Other times, there's obviously some issues when you get involved. It's more for the drug and the alcohol piece. But again, the SAP isn't about punishing. It's about
helping.
Educating. Yeah.
And it's about helping.
Yep.
I think it's definitely not talked about enough because especially when I get involved, some parents don't know what SAP is. So they're like, why is my child getting SAP for this reason? So when you send those letters home that explain everything, I think it helps a little bit more, but it's just not a known thing.
Yeah, and sometimes it's wait, what do you mean? My student has been referred to the SAP team. Like, what's going on? I'm not going to say it's a positive thing, but it's supposed to be a support.
Yes.
It's not a disciplinary thing.
Yes.
And then the last piece of your title there, an assistant counselor. What component is that?
So when I'm not in schools, I am in the office, and I am a counselor, or drug and alcohol counselor to adolescent clients.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So obviously there's a whole bunch of things that you do, but we're going to focus in on the component here at Susquehanna.
Okay.
Specifically, let's talk about our junior senior high school. I think we've pretty much covered the SAP portion. You would work with individual students who have been brought to the SAP team if we believe they have an issue with drugs or alcohol. And then sometimes, we have students that you work with and then also receive some outpatient support as well.
Yeah.
At your local office here in Susquehanna, which is nice. But what about that prevention specialist component? What do you do for Susquehanna in that aspect?
So specifically for the high school, I teach a curriculum called Life Skills Training to our 7th graders here. It's roughly 12 lessons, and we talk about different skills that they should know what they are and kind of have them in their toolkit so that they can say no to drugs and alcohol down the road.
All right, so how that works is we have you push into the social studies classes because we know every single student is going to have social studies with a specific teacher, so we're not going to miss anybody. So you push in there, roughly 12 times throughout the year. So what are some of those specific topics?
So we cover anything from self-image to making decisions to alcohol, tobacco. We talk about nicotine a little bit. Marijuana is a big one. We talk also about vaping, and that's kind of sprinkled through because they have questions, and they kind of have questions maybe when we're talking about advertising because we saw a vape, so we kind of talk about it a little bit through all the lessons.
Okay.
We talk about assertiveness, we talk about communication skills, coping with anxiety, coping with anger, just a couple of them.
So the last time I was in to see a little bit of that, you guys were talking about communication skills.
We were, yes.
About having good conversations and how to have a conversation. And it's hilarious because you sit back and you look and, it's just a funny age, right? Middle school is a funny age. And trying to teach students how to have that conversation. I left your training. And a couple class periods later, I went to the cafeteria, saw some of the exact same students in the cafeteria. And so I'm like, hey, let's see what happens. So I just went up, right? And tried to have a random conversation off the cuff. And some of them caught on to what I was doing, and they started laughing, but then they started to ask me questions as well. It's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And things like that, just to create that small talk, that piece.
I definitely see that 7th graders sometimes don't know how to have a conversation, especially with their teachers and maybe just any staff in the building. So it's good that they know we're not just staring at people and we're not just waiting for them to say something. We can engage in a conversation too.
Yeah, kind of building that confidence.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that can be said for that role-playing aspect. And that's something that I saw you doing. You're like, hey guys, I believe the situation was you have to make a phone call to a business.
Yep.
So the anxiety of I've got to call somebody and talk to them over the phone, and but you guys role played that out, and that's one of the things that we do a lot in my office because I stole it from you, is the role playing for different social situations, specifically standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
I tell students all the time, I 100% believe that you should stand up for yourself, but you have to do it the appropriate way. You can't yell and scream, and you can't swear. So, sit down, whether it's with me, whether it's with your parents, whether it's just you laying in bed trying to fall asleep at night, thinking about things that you can say that would be appropriate to stand up for yourself.
Exactly. We actually talked about that today. So I'm teaching 7th grade today, and our first period class, we just talked about assertiveness and the difference between being aggressive and being assertive. So we did talk about that today.
Yeah, and I think it's funny when students realize, like, hey, the principal just said I can stand up for myself and I'm not going to get in trouble, but they need to know the line.
Yes.
And I'm glad you're teaching them that line, and then I'm kind of on the backside of it, enforcing it. So you're not just with our 7th graders, though.
No, I'm not.
So what are you doing in the elementary school?
So our prevention department does kindergarten through 4th grade, and we also do 6th grade. We teach a combination of different curriculums called Too Good for Drugs and Life Skills. Our Too Good for Drugs is more for our younger students, that we have different activities to keep them engaged, but we're also still teaching them like different ways to say no. So, or just helping them learn about the different components of a drug, or like if this is on your counter, don't touch it, stuff like that. We learn about medication safety because that's a big one. We don't want our younger students getting their hands on somebody else's medication. So we talk about don't touch it if you don't know what it is, go ask a trusted adult, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys get into that because kids are curious.
Yes.
Right? And so, hey, if you don't know what it is, it could really harm you. Like, ask somebody first. That's important. It reminds me of a story a couple years ago. I had confiscated a vape from a student in the high school. I had left it on my desk, and one of my kids, my own kids, came in at the end of the day, and that was just a reminder to me of like, hey, I need to make sure I put those things and dispose of them properly in a timely fashion. But the fact that you guys are teaching them, if you see something you don't know what it is, don't touch it. Really, really important. All right. Can you tell me about Mr. Big Mouth?
Yes. So we have an activity for the kindergartners because they're so little, they don't understand some aspects. We have different foods, and we have our 3 main components. So it's poisons, alcohol, and then like drugs.
Okay.
And specifically medicine too in there. And we have this cardboard cutout, and it's a picture of a man, and his mouth is open. So if it's good for Mr. Big Mouth, we put it in his mouth. So like the foods, eating healthy, stuff like that. If it's bad for Mr. Big Mouth, we don't put it in his mouth, and we say not in my mouth.
Okay.
So they don't put the poisons in, and they don't put the alcohol, they don't put the medication, because they understand the concept.
So you're really hitting them at their level. And I can only imagine a bunch of kindergartners laughing and having a good time with this. But you guys are driving home that point of, what is important and what you should be putting in someone's mouth versus not. But I guess my point I'm trying to make is you've found ways to do it where it's entertaining, it's fun, and it's relevant for the age.
Yes, and we build on that topic every year. So yeah, we start in kindergarten where we might be a little silly, but then when we get to 1st grade, we talk about medication safety and how we're not supposed to be touching it. And then 2nd grade is more like, how do we say no? And stuff like that. Why are we letting peer pressure affect us? Stuff like that. So we just add on to it each time.
Yeah, layers to it. Yeah. I think it would be cool to bring Mr. Big Mouth back just once or twice in 7th grade, and we can make it a contest where they, maybe a sports contest where they actually have to throw the thing and try to get it in the mouth.
That would be fun.
Win a stuffed teddy bear or something like that. They'd be like, hey, I remember doing this in kindergarten. Here it is coming back. But so you mentioned vaping.
Yes.
You said that's something that you guys talk about a lot because I'm guessing it just naturally comes out.
Yes, of course. I mean, right now we're in a vaping epidemic.
Yep.
I mean, it's sad to say, but we are, and it's hitting our youth. So we're trying as hard as we can to implement different curriculums for vaping. So just the students understand what's actually happening, why they're not safe, what you're putting in your body, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about vaping real quick at the high school. At the high school level, we have vape detectors in some of our bathrooms. Obviously not all of them, and I mean the students can probably see them hanging on the walls, but I'm not going to list which ones we do. Those vape detectors, when they sense the chemical compound in a vape, they actually send a text to my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So lucky me, I get that text message saying, "Hey, there's a somebody potentially vaping in this bathroom." So what I do in those situations is I can then go to that bathroom. If it's the boys' bathroom, I walk right in and try to figure out what the heck's going on. If it's the girls' bathroom, I obviously grab a female member of our faculty and send them in. And really, anyone in the bathroom at the time when that vape detector goes off, we treat them the same. You say, hey, most of you, probably wrong time, wrong place. All right. Most likely one of you were vaping. So those students, they come down to the office with me. I then have another guidance counselor come in, and we search the student. Now, the search of a student is not intrusive at all. It consists of, hey, if you had your book bag with you in the bathroom, then we're going to search your book bag. Take everything out. And for most students, it's a great time to throw away the stuff that you've had for 4 months in there that you don't need. The old food and things like that would get you all cleaned up in terms of organized book bags. And then we have a metal detector that we just run over our students and try to determine, are you hiding it on you? Because most likely we know if a student has a vape that's not going to be in their book bag, it's going to be on their person someplace. So that's kind of the procedure that we take for searching for vapes. There would be times the vape detector will go off. We'll go into the bathroom and no one's there. And so there was a delay. So I do have cameras outside of the bathrooms in which I can then pull up those cameras and say, okay, in the last 3 or 4 minutes, who was in there, and kind of get that timeline. And then I can go pull them out of class and search them. Now, full disclosure, do I search a student every single time that vape detector goes off? No. And I'll give an example. Yesterday I was out of the building at a meeting and the vape detector went off. I got that text message on my cell phone. That one went unaddressed because I wasn't in the building. But let me give you a really quick funny story. There was a day after school, I was up in my office and the vape detector went off. So I go down to the boys' bathroom because that's where the vape detector supposedly was going off. I walk into the boys' bathroom expecting to see a gentleman in there vaping, and what I saw were a couple members of our girls' volleyball team curling their hair. So my first thought was, what are you guys doing in here? And my second thought was, the vape detector just got set off by hairspray that was then being heated. And you know what the response to me was when I'm like, what are you guys doing in here? The response was, there's more outlets and a better mirror. So the volleyball team, they had a game that night and they wanted to look good. So all the mirrors and outlets were being used in the girls' bathroom. They figured, hey, it's after school, no one's here. We're just gonna go in the boys' bathroom and use the outlets in here and there. So that was, to me, a funny thing that occurred. And obviously, vaping wasn't involved. But overall, it's good that we have the vape detectors to draw some attention to it. And we're kind of at the point now where, if students come out of the bathroom and I'm standing there, they're like, really? Like, it happened again? And I'm like, yep, just come with me real quick.
And they know that there's detectors.
Right.
Like, I remember having a conversation last year with some students when I did a vaping presentation, and they're like, we know that they're there. Yep. But then I was like, why do you still do them if you know they're there? And they're like, because we can find ways around it.
Yeah.
Because going back to what you said, teenagers are sneaky.
Yep, absolutely. And they don't always make the best choices, but adults don't always make the best choices either. So, do we catch everybody? No, absolutely not. But do we catch some of them? Absolutely. And that's worthwhile. So, hey, I really want to thank you for coming on today. And just kind of giving some more information about how we're addressing some of these problems that, our students face. I guess in closing, hey, news is out. next school year, I will be the elementary school principal. So I am leaving the high school and heading over to the elementary school. I am super excited for that. It's going to be very different. Very different in terms of the students I'm going to interact with. But one thing I'm really excited for is not being the shortest person in the building. All right, I actually, I might feel tall next year, which I'm really excited for. But we're definitely going to have you continuing to do your prevention specialist work in the elementary school next year. You'll still be in the high school because we value absolutely everything that you do in Susquehanna community. We'll see you later. Remember, work secure.